On a spring evening in 1985, a man drove a lonely road in rural Maryland and left a grocery bag beside a utility pole. Inside the bag, 129 classified United States Navy documents wrapped in a plastic trash liner. He was not a foreign agent. He was a retired American naval officer, and he had been doing this for 17 years. In that time, he handed the Soviet Union the keys to America's military communications, and the Soviets read over 1 million American messages. A KGB officer would later call it the most important intelligence operation in Soviet history. This is the story of John Anthony Walker and the family business he built out of treason. To understand how one man did this, you have to start with something very ordinary, a failing bar and a pile of debt. By 1967, John Walker was a Navy Communications Watch officer with a wife, 4 children, and a business bleeding money. He had invested in a bar in South Carolina. It was failing. The debt was closing in, and his Navy salary could not cover it. But Walker had something worth far more than his salary. He had a security clearance, and he sat at the center of Navy message traffic. Every encrypted signal the Atlantic Fleet sent passed through rooms like his. He did not just read the messages. He held the keys. In late 1967, he made a decision that no amount of debt can explain away. He drove to Washington. He walked up to the Soviet embassy, and he walked in through the front door. He did not creep. He did not signal. He simply presented himself and offered to sell the United States Navy's communication security. Soviet intelligence had a word for men like him, a walk-in, and walk-ins were usually assumed to be traps. So Walker brought proof, a key list, a page of settings for a Navy cipher machine valid for a specific day. The Soviets tested it against intercepted traffic. It worked. Whatever else John Walker was, he was not a plant. They paid him several $1,000s that day and put him on a retainer of between $500 and $1,000 a week. Understand what that meant in 1967. The Soviets were paying him more each week than most Americans earned in a month. For 17 years, nobody at the Pentagon noticed the hole he had opened. To grasp what Walker actually sold, you need to understand how military secrecy worked in the 1960s. The Navy did not send messages in plain language. Every signal went through a cipher machine that scrambled it into noise. The machine itself was only half the system. The other half was the key, a daily setting that told the machine how to scramble. 2 ships could hold identical machines and still read nothing from each other, unless both were loaded with the same key for that day. Which means the security of the entire fleet rested on a simple idea: the enemy must never hold the machine and the key at the same time. Walker sold the keys. Month after month, he photographed key lists with a small camera before they were destroyed. On their own, keys without a machine are close to useless. The Soviets needed the hardware. And in January 1968, only months after Walker walked in, North Korea seized an American spy ship, the USS Pueblo. Aboard her was cryptographic equipment. The machines went to Moscow. Walker was already supplying the keys. The lock and the key, delivered separately, within a year of each other. From that point, American naval traffic was an open book. There is a natural limit to a spy like Walker. Careers move. Access ends. Eventually, he was rotated to duties without a key list in reach. Most agents would have gone quiet. Walker did something that intelligence officers still describe as almost without precedent. He turned espionage into a family enterprise, and he recruited from the people closest to him. First came Jerry Whitworth, a Navy radio man and a close friend, who held exactly the access Walker had lost. Whitworth believed for a time that the material was going to an ally, not to Moscow. Walker let him believe it. Next came his older brother, Arthur, a retired naval officer working for a defense contractor. And then Walker crossed a line that even his handlers found remarkable. He recruited his own son. Michael Walker was a young sailor aboard the aircraft carrier USS Nimitz. He was assigned to a clerical job with access to burn bags, the sacks of classified paper waiting to be destroyed. He simply took documents out of the trash before they burned. Thousands of pages from one of the most powerful warships afloat. Walker had also tried to recruit his daughter Laura while she served in the army. She refused him. Think about the structure he had built. A friend, a brother, a son. 4 people, 1 family, 1 continuous pipeline to Moscow. It ran through 4 American presidencies. It ran through the Vietnam War and deep into the 1980s. And in all that time, no polygraph, no audit, and no security review ever caught a single one of them. So what did 17 years of American naval secrets actually buy the Soviet Union? Some of it is obvious. Fleet movements, operational plans, where American attack submarines were patrolling and when. Soviet intelligence built a dedicated facility just to process the volume of decrypted American traffic flowing in. But the most damaging thing Moscow learned was not about the American fleet at all. It was about their own. American anti-submarine warfare rested on a hidden advantage. Soviet submarines were loud, and America was listening. Chains of underwater microphones sat on the ocean floor, tracking Soviet boats by the noise of their propellers alone. Reading American message traffic told the Soviets 2 things at once: that their submarines were being tracked, and how. Now they knew the problem. What they still lacked was the machinery precise enough to fix it. If you watched the last episode, you already know how that gap was closed. Toshiba and Kongsberg sold the Soviet Union milling machines capable of cutting propellers that ran quiet. Walker told Moscow what was wrong. Those machines gave Moscow the means to correct it. American sonar screens went quiet twice over, once because the propellers changed, and once because Moscow could read the hunter's own orders. In the end, no counterintelligence system caught John Walker. His family did. His marriage had collapsed years earlier. Barbara Walker had known about the spying for a long time and had stayed silent. In late 1984, bitter, broke, and finished with protecting him, she telephoned the FBI. Agents were initially skeptical. Tips from estranged spouses are common and rarely true. But the details held up. Surveillance began, and in May 1985 they followed Walker to that Maryland road. Agents recovered the bag. Hours later they arrested him in a motel corridor, and 17 years ended in a few minutes. Walker pleaded guilty and agreed to testify against Whitworth in exchange for leniency for his son. He received life and died behind bars in 2014. His brother Arthur received 3 concurrent life sentences. His son Michael got 25 years and was paroled in 2000. Jerry Whitworth, the friend who thought he was helping an ally, was sentenced to 365 years. The KGB officer Vitaly Yushchenko put it plainly. Walker, he said, created war-winning implications for the Soviet side. The Navy's machines were never broken. Its ciphers were never cracked. A man in debt simply walked through a door and sold the keys.